This is Dropped on Soccer's morning show. Soccer down here. John, hear you there. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Friday. We'll get you. Yeah, Niall, it's been a crazy past 24 hours. It's had its moments. We will get into the latest across the board. And it looks like Gerard Mayo might be the new head coach of the New England Patriots. So there's anything you want to talk about. Like I said, it's a Friday. We got a lot of topics across the board. Here's just a part of what I wanted to get into today. Gio Reyna's got a new agent. The Apple docuseries was announced. We'll get into that. News of silly season, all that kind of stuff, domestic, international. We'll get into all of that stuff. We have an update on Bruce Arena. And apparently it's still kind of hanging out there with his status. So we got an update there. The Gavin Wilkinson hire in Kansas City, we talked about that at the end of the show yesterday. We'll get into it more today and get into some of the ins and outs of the press conference. Morning, Alex. And we do have Newcastle news. Newcastle has announced how much money they lost last year, and it's more than half of what you're allowed in a 3-year period when it comes to FFP. And so we'll get into the Newcastle news. And there's also some signings a signing for Atlanta United, Stian Gregerson. We now have the official pronunciation on that, as the Hoff caught up with him at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground yesterday with a bit of the bio blast, the walk-in talk, and we found out some stuff about Stian Gregerson, where he's big in Harry Potter, likes to fish, all of those kinds of things. So it was a fun walk-in talk with Gregerson and the Hoff. Morning, David. And go to the Atlanta United social medias. I think it's on the 280-character app specifically, where you can catch up with the conversation that the Hoff had with Stian Gregerson and get to the quick learn about all of that. Joelinton out for the next 6 weeks, hamstring, I believe. So that's not good news. AFCON starting, Asian Cup starting. So there's all of that. There was a great deep dive into the venues in the Ivory Coast and how much, I think it was $1.5 billion that was spent on the venues themselves and how it's a part of diplomacy with the Far East. And so you got that. So AFCON's coming up this weekend. That starts for the next 30 days, and we'll be watching all of that. So like I said, there's a lot of news. There's a lot of stuff. So it's whatever you guys want to talk about. But what I did want to start with this morning, and we got media days yesterday. Yorgos Akamakis, the newly married Yorgos Akamakis, he was a part of media day yesterday, league-wide media day yesterday. And so there's some stuff with him there as well. So plenty of Atlanta United stuff. We'll go down the Bartos Sleege, and it's the end, not the beginning. We initially had it as Schlees, but it is Sleege. So it's at the end. The je is at the end of the name, not the beginning of the last name. So we'll see if we can track down anything with Bartos Sleege and the $3.5 million there. Yeah, Niall had a bit. He had a bit of a to Ange. Yeah. So that was a part of it there too. And so we'll get into media day. We'll get into Gregerson, get into Bartos Sleege, and all of the Atlanta United stuff, plus other transfers. So there's plenty to talk about. All right. So what I wanted to talk about to start things off this morning, and it is the opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. That is the QR code that Abby sent. For those of you who are watching on the video side of things, on the YouTube channel, on the Twitch, and on the 280-character app. Much better overlay than the one that I came up with by taking the picture on the banner that is in Office HD. So that's me, and that's Abby, and Abby's is far better than mine. So there we go. So there's your QR code for those of you who are watching live. And don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15, and you get 15% off your purchase. They in turn take 10%, reinvested into youth games, youth initiatives, very, very cool things that they have earmarked. Our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Yesterday it was announced that the folks that were in charge of the box-to-box miniseries that was put on Amazon. I mean, on Netflix. Sorry, the folks that did the Netflix Drive to Survive. I knew it was one of those pay services that I've subscribed to. Box to Box, the production company that created Netflix's big hit Drive to Survive series on Formula One racing. Just don't ask Max Verstappen what he thought about it. Is going to spend the year doing an 8-part behind-the-scenes series on Major League Soccer. And from Jonathan Tannenwald, he says it won't just be about Lionel Messi. Caught up with Paul Martin at Media Day. And Paul Martin says, quote, I think people really want to know more of the stories and get to know the coaches, the players, the crop of young Americans that's coming through and going on to the world stage. I think that there's a real curiosity about the league and the sport here from the rest of the world. And I think our show can help take people on the inside, into the dressing rooms, into the airplanes as they go and travel around the country, end quote. And from Tannenwald at the Philadelphia Inquirer, with the number of young Americans coming through the Union's ranks, fans should hope the series visits Chester for a while. Fans should also hope Box to Box can keep up its track record of not shying away from tough coverage. Though MLS has editorial oversight of Apple's game broadcasts and studio shows, Bacon hinted, though he didn't say outright, that Box to Box will have free reign. Quote, Box to Box has had some of the most successful sports docuseries in the world, and our intention is not to mess with the formula that's made those shows successful. So it looks like Box to Box is going to be doing a version of what they did with Major League Soccer that they did with Formula One. And my question, and Tom, this is my big beef with Formula One, is that Max Verstappen wins pretty much everything. It's boring. I admit to following the Haas team because they're the American-based club, the American-based team. And they had a shocking move because their number one dude, Gunther Steiner, has moved on. So I always want to see what's going on with Haas. Haas is one of those folks that's always at the back, and you want to be the best of the rest because it's always Ferrari and Mercedes and Red Bull. So you want to be like number 4. And Haas, because of their financials, they're always they're like a year or two behind when it comes to all of the stuff that you need to succeed. And when they were in line with everyone else when it came to technology, they were right there at number 4. They were getting, they're getting points and getting a lot of races. But yeah, really, Tom, I'm with you. F1 is a yawn. It is boring AF. And it's disappointing because, I want to see everybody else try and sit there and figure out who's going to be number 4. But yeah, seeing Max Verstappen winning every race is not very appealing. But my question to you this morning is, if you were executive producer of the Box to Box, and honestly, they could keep the title, the Box to Box series for Major League Soccer, what would you want in it? What would you want to see? Obviously, hearing from the executive producer, they say they're going to have free reign. They're not going to shy away from tough topics. Morning, Nix. I will. Nix wants to know who's going to the Birmingham match. We'll be there. What do you want to see out of this? What would you want to see? Teams, dudes, storylines, all this kind of stuff. What do you think would make a successful or watchable Box to Box? The airplanes, obviously you're going to have to spend some time with Messi and friends. That do you spend time with Denny Bouanga as he's trying to figure out a way to get back to Europe? The biggest thing, and what I would want to know is, what's the turnaround time? Meaning, when you shoot a story, when does it air? Because if there are these 8 episodes of Box to Box MLS style, for lack of a better phrase, what would you want to see? And if you shoot the information, how long do you have? I mean, is it like once a month? How long are these things? Are these things an hour? And what are you going to be putting in this? What would you want to see when it comes to box-to-box MLS. That's my QOD this morning. When it comes to box-to-box MLS, what would you want to see? What would you want to have in it? So it's not looking like, box-to-box F1. It's, box-to-box Major League Soccer or Drive to Survive or whatever you want to call it. And you keep Drive to Survive. Legitimately, what do you want to see in this? What would make it desirable for you to watch? That's the big thing. That's what I wanted to know this morning. To make this desirable television that you'd probably have to subscribe to Apple to get, short of the shorts that they would be putting on Apple TV and such. What would you want to see in that? And legitimately, they say that they're going to be unfettered with all of their, access and everything. But, how much can they show? How much can they not? How much are they going to be told, okay, we need you to leave the room, and you get the shot of them shutting the door, those kinds of things. That. What do you want to see? What kinds of parts of this mini series or this docu-series or whatever you want to call it, the episodic, what would you want to see in it? So that's the QOD. Obviously for me, it'd be great to get into boardrooms and things like that. But once again, you really don't necessarily know how much access you're going to be getting. They claim they're going to be getting access, but you just don't know how much. So we'll keep an eye on all of that. Like I said, if they get Niall with the early shot, if they can get footage of Matt Miazga being an idiot, that would be entertaining. Well, he seems to be doing a pretty decent example of it, so you wouldn't have to wait long. I feel like I need a rim shot in a situation like that. But yeah, Matt Miazga. So Niall wants Matt Miazga being an idiot. So there you go. All right. So those kinds of things that we are staring at coming up in just a little bit. Greg Garza joining us from our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring, and it'll be after 9:30, and we'll keep Greg until 10 o'clock like we always do. But Greg Garza hopping in this morning, and we will be keeping an eye on Greg. It'll be good to catch up with him for the first time in 2024. All right, so Atlanta United was kind of busy yesterday, and it looks like they might continue to be busy, which is never a bad thing if you are, wanting to make full advantage of the January window as it is. And Stian Gregerson, locked, loaded, signed, ready to go. So he is in-house. And it looks like it is a 4-year deal and option for a 5th. And obviously when folks are looking at all the tape, but that's the thing, you want to look at tape, and you're going to have the best, you're going to have the best video of anybody of all of your stuff. You're going to put that in there. You're not going to sit there and, show you getting beaten on defense, on defense, backtracking or something like that. But what we've seen in the video that's been released of Stian Gregerson is closing speed, locking it down, getting up into the air, all of those things, all of that stuff. So it's going to be interesting that you're going to be looking at Stian Gregerson. So that's the stage number one. As I sit here and look at, through 27 with an option for 28. Now, keeping an eye on Sleege. Once again, you're looking at the $3.5 million transfer. Highest transfer fee incoming for Legia Warsaw ever was 4 years ago until today, or until this allegedly, possibly, probably gets locked down when it comes to Sleege. Sorry, it's at the end. That's going to trip me. But it looks like $3.5 million is what we're staring at. And then now the question is going to be, is to what the Hoff said, to what Joe Fryhofer said earlier this week. He said it was going to be a very, very busy week for the social media team. How busy is it going to be? Obviously, they had Aiden Torres between two spikes. They had the walk and talk and Stian Gregerson and getting ready for Gregerson to show up. Are they going to be doing the same thing for Bartosz Slić? So we'll see. Do they make it to the end of this week? Is it something that happens on the weekend? Does the $3.5 million work its way over? Does it hold until Monday? Those kinds of things. So you've got that in line. Then the word came out yesterday from Fabrizio Romano. Here we go with Fabrizio Romano. That it appears that if things happen at Atletico Madrid, if things fall one way or the other, it appears that out of the box, the first choice for Atletico Madrid would be Thiago Almada. Thiago Almada is, according to Fabrizio Romano, one of the top names on the Atletico Madrid list in case Angel Correa leaves the club. Al-Ittihad, and once again, they changed the Saudi rules of engagement, and I'm going to write that down so we can follow that in hour number 2. But the Saudi League has changed their rules of engagement now when it comes to players, how many you can get of a certain type. And I'm writing that down so I don't forget to talk about it. But Angel Correa, Al-Ittihad, Atletico Madrid, and Thiago Almada. These 4 pieces right now, and we got to kind of keep an eye on it. Fabrizio Romano at, let's see, 4:00 yesterday afternoon. Once again, this is why we need to have an afternoon show. Thiago Almada, one of the top names on Atletico Madrid's list in case Angel Correa will leave the club. Al-Ittihad will approach Atleti for Correa, and Thiago Almada has always been appreciated by Atleti. His name is very high on the club list. Correa, by Romano's own admission, is not an easy deal, as it's going to depend on the financial package for the club and player. Marcelo Gallardo and Planas both want Correa. So this is dealing with, once again, Marcelo Gallardo. But keep an eye on this one. Thiago Almada, once again, we've talked about Thiago Almada, the desire he has, as does any, human being on the planet. You want to see where your game is. Mentions Europe. Atletico Madrid, keep an eye on that. But once again, Angel Correa has to end up going to Al-Ittihad. If that step is taken care of, then on the top part of the list for Diego Simeone and for Atletico Madrid is Thiago Almada. And what we've always talked about, we know that this deal is going to, in its value, going to be a pretty decent amount. And I know that those of us on this side of the Atlantic, we're sitting there saying 30, 30, okay. So somewhere in there. But as Nick mentioned yesterday, something to keep an eye on the economics of the deal. If it is something astronomical, that it is a value of 30, a value of 35. Keep an eye on that. If it's a value of 35, you're only getting 30 and you still have 20% of the pass. 5 over 30, 15%. Something like that. If it's 30 and you get 25 and that, if I'm trying to do math in my head. So if it's 5, so if you're looking at, say, 15 to 20% of the pass, and you're not getting, if it's 35, you get 30 and 15%. If it's 30 and you get 25 and 17 or 18%. If it's 25 and you get 20 and 20%. Something in there. You're going, okay. So keep an eye. So even if the dollar amount isn't all the way to absolute 100%, look at the value of the deal in as much as we would sit there. Nick's is saying you need 30 million plus. Right. So, but keep an eye on the value of the whole thing. If the value of Thiago Almada is 30 million plus, so say 30 or 35 or what have you, but you only get 75, 80% of that, or 85%, plus a sell on, that's something that benefits you down the line. Every single time in a couple of years, say Thiago Almada gets another fantastic contract, or he gets sold by ATLUTD and he goes to England, or he goes someplace else. He goes to Barca or Real Madrid or Premier League or what have you. If the value of the deal hits that 30 marker and Atlanta United continues to cash in, keep an eye on that too. So that's what so keep an eye on that. But once again, these are the pieces that have to fall in place. Angel Correa from Atletico Madrid to Al-Ittihad and Marcelo Gallardo. Then if Correa goes, if everything's agreed to, and once again, you still got, 18, 19 days to get everything moving. And I know that Al-Ittihad, because they are in season, they want to get things moving as well, and they want to improve right now. Their standing in the league leaves a lot to be desired. And they are trying to work their way up the table as best they can. So Al-Ittihad right now is 3, 6, 7th. They are in 7th place right now in the league. They're a win out of 5th. They got some folks to climb over. Al Hilal and Al Nasser, obviously, 1 and 2. And then Al Ahly has some space at number 3. And then there's the 4 teams at 4 through 7. Al-Ittihad is right now at number 7. So they got some work to do. And for them to do that, Gallardo says it's like, okay, I need Angel Correa. Now we see where this goes from here. But once again, Correa to Al-Ittihad. If that happens first, then keep an eye on Atletico Madrid and Thiago Almada. Yes, Nick's in the words of the great poet Damon Wayans, mo money, mo money, mo money. Absolutely. You are not wrong. Absolutely not wrong. Yesterday was also, we mentioned the announcement of the box-to-box folks and what you would watch. Yesterday was media day in general for the league. And Groom Yakamakis was one of the folks that was part of the focus on that day. Media day, he got to sit at a table and answer questions. Just to play for Atlanta, you have to aim to win some titles. Even if the team is giving you the pressure or the fans, you have to put this pressure on yourself before the season even starts. Newcomer of the year, 17 goals, 27 matches, 19 in all comps. Tied him for second in the league with MLS MVP Lucho Acosta, both finishing 3 goals behind Denny Buanga. So chasing after Golden Boot is important for Gigi. Something I was really close to achieving in 2023. At the end of the day, I didn't win it, so it's something I'm really aiming to win in 2024. He's got the Euros he's got to work through. And remember, he's got that matchup with Georgia coming up. So it's Saba and Gigi going up against each other. If Georgia beats Luxembourg on March 26th. So you could have Gigi and Saba going at each other. Greece and Kazakhstan on the 21st. Winner of that one faces either Georgia or Luxembourg on the 26th. So keep an eye late March to see if Gigi and Saba will face off against each other. And interesting that Gigi also mentions he found more confidence in Atlanta that he didn't have at Celtic. Renewed level of fitness. Once again, you get more playing time. Quote, they are the most important games I've ever played as a national team player coming up. I've never been to a big tournament with the national team, and this is probably the biggest dream I have right now. And then, as Niall, as you mentioned, Very positive in his relationship with Gonzalo Pineda. About Ange Postecoglou, quote, so he mentioned some stuff about Ange, but what he said about Pineda, quote, very nice guy. And this is really important for me. And he's also a good manager. For me, if you're a good manager and not a good guy, you cannot inspire me because I've had managers like that in the past. For me, he has the whole package and we have a great relationship. So for me, if you're a good manager and not a good guy, you cannot inspire me because I've had managers like that in the past. Keep an eye on that one. Also, Edwin Mosqueda got a muscle injury. As we'll keep an eye on that with Mosqueda. Call-ups for a couple of other folks. Muscle injury, will not be able to participate in the CONMEBOL pre-Olympic tournament for Colombia's U23s. Colombian Football Federation statement, quote, the coaching staff of the Colombia U23 allowed to communicate that Atlanta United player Edwin Mosqueda will not be able to continue in the call-up due to a muscle injury that prevents him being full fitness. Hector Cardenas, his coaching staff, and the group of players wish Edwin Mosqueda a speedy recovery, hoping the next opportunity he can make part of Colombia's U23s again. It is after 9:30. And this guy was worried. I mean, I love the fact that he's letting you know what's going on. He's this segment on Fridays, the Friday Free Kick, it's always either catching up with Michael Parkhurst or Greg Garza. We had Cap last week, so this week we have Greg. Greg's in the bullpen, so he can hear every single word that I'm saying. But Greg was like, I'm going to be running late. A whole 2 minutes. He's a whole 2 minutes late. So we'll bring Greg in. Oh, brother, good to see you.
You too. How's everything going, man?
Oh, it's fantastic. So since it's been a while since you have been here, I will go ahead and ask you, sir, how was your holiday?
It was great. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. How about you, bud?
As you see, the environment is a little different.
I do see that.
Than normal. The way that the week has fallen, this is technically today. Today is my anniversary. It is my wedding anniversary.
Congratulations. How many years?
It is 11.
Wow.
My wife, the boss, has survived me for 11 years.
That's great, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. And she knew that I had a show to do this morning, and she had no qualm whatsoever. And so what I did, I did what I do, and I don't know if you with your better half are the same way. I try to be a bit of a deep thinker when it comes to gifts.
Yeah.
And when it comes to anniversaries and things like that, they always give you those lists that are on the board. And you're like, okay, so here's what the anniversary gifts are for this year. And they sit there and everything starts with like a medal. And they always try to sit there and tweak it to like it being a different medal each and every time. We have so much medal anniversary gifts in our house that we're like, yeah, let's try and do something different. So I went, and you look down the list and they'll sit there and they'll come up with these real obscure things and, precious metals and things like that. And so what I did is I like to go down to about 5 or 6. I look at it for like, you're trying to find a definition of a word in the dictionary and you go to like the 5th or 6th definition. That's what I ended up doing. So I ended up getting the boss a matching set of turquoise, which is 11. And I didn't know this. Matching set of turquoise earrings and pendant for anniversary. So I went that direction.
I love it. That looks that I'm sure that's a great gift to give. And I mean, you went something different. I feel like it's going to be well remembered.
Yeah, she was a fan because what we did, and I'm really bad about keeping secrets. I don't know about you, but if I get something for the boss, I can't hang on to it because it's like
terrible at keeping secrets. Terrible. I can't like once I get something for someone, I'm already so excited to give it to them that I just can't wait.
Exactly. And so what we did is we celebrated anniversary Greenwich Mean Time. So last night at 7:00, when it was midnight in Greenwich Mean Time, we celebrated anniversary then. So that's where we are. So like, that's the biggest thing is that next time you see me, we'll be back at Office HD. But this is what it looks like this close to the Gulf of Mexico. Obviously, it's a little different, but
I love it, man. I love it.
When it comes to this time of year, and we're talking about transfers and lives changing and new gigs and things like that. There's always that time that we have in the holidays when you talk to your mentees about going into a new year and new goals and things like that. And I want to get into setting expectations in just a sec. But how many conversations, or how deep are the conversations that you have with mentees when it comes to making sure that they take time for themselves and that they're not grinding 14 months out of the year, that it's okay to kind of pull it back a little bit?
Massively. The last thing I wanted to see in front of my face, and I'm sure Mike can tell you the exact same thing, after every single season was a soccer ball for like the first 10 days. I wanted to get away and enjoy time with family and enjoy time with the kids and do things that throughout the season you're not able to do. I even tell people who have young kids and are on break, or on winter break, or on spring break, or on all these different breaks. It's called break for a reason.
Yeah.
All these people that are in kind of, it can create overkill, and it can create just kind of the mindset to just think you're doing too much. I think I love my 5th grade son's teacher's concept at the beginning of the year when we had the parent teacher conference. He said, look, I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher for over 25 years. Maybe it might have been 30. But he said, I don't give homework. And all the parents are like, wow, this is great. And his explanation to it was, I'm also a baseball coach after school every single day. And he said, the last thing that I want to take home after my baseball coaching is school, his schoolwork. Said the differentiation of understanding when I'm at school, I do school and I focus solely on school. And whenever I finish school, I get to focus on being a baseball coach. And I don't want to take work home, right? Nobody wants to take work home. And I love that explanation that he gave, because that's so important. We have to self-regulate constantly. And I love that. I love that word. Self-regulation. It's understanding how to find a balance and how to find control. And you need that. You need to train your mind in doing the exact same thing. And off season is super important. Now these guys are getting kicking it back up. So now their mindset shift is probably there to understand the importances. There's still a level of accountability and responsibility there, because Mike and I can always speak about the 24/7 athlete, but it is always important to get away from the game as well.
How difficult is that, though? Is it easier for the younger athlete to get away and take time, or is it easier for the older athlete to do that? How does that work when it comes to ages and age groups accepting the idea of pulling away?
I feel like in today's world, there is no rest for these young kids. There's no rest. They're always doing something. And I'm a true believer. I think Joe Burrow said it one time. He was like, I'm a true believer of that. If you're going to put in the work, you're going to put in the work in silence. And this is not a bash at anybody on social media, but the guy who's posting himself doing extra training, and posting himself running on the hill or whatever, like the selfie, that guy, we talk about intensity of motivation and we talk about stamina of motivation. That guy's pure intensity of motivation, right? I would follow that guy around the whole entire off season. I guarantee you that was the one time he ran. It's like people who really put the work in off season, when it's needed, right? They'll take that rest in silence, and they'll really put in the time with their loved ones and their families. And then when they get back in the grind, man, they're going to do it silently. They're not going to show people, unless you're like Sergio Ramos and you go to his Instagram page and you see this guy just absolutely beastly working, and Cristiano Ronaldo, but they're getting paid millions to post a post on Instagram. So, there's a difference in that. I'm a true believer that work in silence, right? Work silently to see the light. I think that was Kobe's saying, or no, work in the dark to see the light.
Right.
And I believe in that. I was the very first video that they showed us whenever I was in Sporting Lisbon, was like a video that they had it recorded of Cristiano Ronaldo. And I don't even think this video has ever even been released publicly, but it was a video of Cristiano Ronaldo at like 2:30 in the morning, waking up and leaving his dorm room when he was a kid, and he was walking to the gym. And it was kind of insane because it just showed you, okay, this is why this guy's one of the best. But that was his routine. That was his lifestyle. But I bet you there is a moment when Cristiano Ronaldo finishes his season that he goes to Ibiza with his family and enjoys, time off and time away from the game. So I think it's changing a little bit. I think younger generations really think that it's got to be all the time, the end all be all. But there has to be times and moments that you understand working and understand time off.
CR38 with his unseasoned chicken and his massage gun and his water that has been filtered 38 gazillion times. You know that's all going to be a part of this. But I mean, but you make an interesting point about promotion and working in silence. And there's always, I think, for younger folks, that pull of the idea of, hey, I have to show, look at me, look what I'm doing, hey, I'm working, hey, look at this. I have to show everybody that I'm doing this as almost some kind of it's a validation and a self-validation at points, but it's cool to sit there and it's like, look, I don't need to know every single waking moment of your day. If you're working out, it'll show up when we're out there on the practice field. It'll show up there on game day. I don't need to see you doing 90 push-ups in 60 seconds to prove to me that you're working. Just prove it to me when it matters. Don't prove it to me at like 5:35 in the afternoon on a Thursday.
That you're very right. I going back, I think Joe Burrow had said it right. Is like the guys who are really working are the guys that don't even have time to share anything, because those guys are really putting in the hours. They're really putting in the time and effort. I believe in a lot of those guys. I feel like even for me, I was definitely one of those guys. I didn't really care too much of anything else besides just kind of sticking to my routine and plan of what was needed. And I had this conversation with we had a parent meeting a few days ago, and I think before the meeting had even started, I think a parent came up to me and had said, look, this is just bluntly said, he said, look, I think the professional athlete's mindset is different than any other person's mindset. And it kind of caught me off guard. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? He's like, the amount of discipline that goes in, right? And I think we always go back to the conversation. This is a parent that actually like understood, right? Because I think there's some parents that are like, oh, their jobs are really easy. You do this for half the day and then you're finished. But I think that was a level of respect where that parent came in and said, look, I know what you guys go through. I know the stress that you put on your body, and I know the timed mannerisms that you guys live in throughout your day to make sure that you're competing at your best. And you can't take 1 minute off, right? It's like you can't take one training off. You can't have the average mindset of thinking, okay, well, I can focus on this tomorrow, or I can put more time in it tomorrow. You have to always put 1,000% in everything that you do. And I think that's a special mindset to have. I always tell kids and I tell people, I feel like you can be an elite athlete, but it's really hard to be an elite person.
Yeah.
There are a lot of elite athletes out there, but I feel like the elite people are the ones that succeed more so than just those elite athletes.
Who in your mind is an elite person? And it doesn't necessarily have to be an athlete, but when you come across individuals or when you see public figures, who do you gravitate toward and sit there and go, that is an elite person?
Man, I love watching like the little reels, and I don't know how to work TikTok, but I like the Instagram reels. Like my explore is always like motivational speeches, and just motivational, people. Um, I think I really gravitated towards like Kobe Bryant, just because I think he pops up on my feed a lot. I feel like Tom Brady is another one of them that pops up on my feed a lot. And just a lot of different entrepreneurs that have been successful, and it could be an actor, or it can be anyone, just teaching core values of what it takes, what it had taken for them to be successful. And I think that shows a lot of it shows a lot of work that goes behind that, right? Nobody is successful overnight. I think your success overnight is, I think that's a saying, right? It's no one is successful overnight. Your success overnight was 10 years in the making, right? And so that success overnight was because of all of that work that you put in those 10 years beforehand, right? A gamer who's extremely good at gaming is right, playing video games all day long, like my kids, but right, it's they've just put so much time and effort. And you look at like a really famous comedian influencer on social media, like that guy. I don't know if anyone has ever tried to edit videos and try to do all that kind of stuff on social media or all that kind of stuff. Oh my gosh, it is so time consuming. It is so time consuming. You can be there and you'd be like, man, this looks great. And you're like, holy crap, I just spent 5 hours on this 15-second video. So, I mean, kudos to all those people who do a really good job in what they do, because it does take a lot of time and effort. And I think generationally speaking, kids do not understand that concept of it. I think because of the kind of world that we live in, I think people really think that it doesn't take too much to be successful. And I think the stigma of parents, almost every single parent thinking their kid is going to be a pro. I had this conversation with my mom the other day. It's like, back in the day, so many people spend so much money to feel like they were going to save money on college. And now it's like nobody even cares about having their kid play in college anymore. Everybody is doing all this stuff because they know and they think their kid is going to become pro. And it's interesting to see from our point of view and our perspective, because you can really break down the numbers for them, and it would be a pretty miserable conversation that you would have. But it's one that you have to always be honest, and you have to self-assess, and but understand the time and effort that goes behind being a successful player or an elite person.
What are those conversations like with parents? How much of a wake-up call is it, or do you still have parents that may take all of that empirical evidence that you and Parkey put out there? And how many of these parents that you have these conversations with, how many of them are wake-up calls, and how many of them sit there and still have Teflon about it, and they're like, no, well, my kid's going to be in that percentage? How do these conversations break down percentage-wise, do you think?
Yeah, it's I have a lot of like discovery calls or conversations with parents, and I always correct them on this sentence. And some might take it wrong, but I always correct them on this sentence. A lot of parents will always say, my son or my daughter is an elite player. And I'll say, yeah, that's great. They're an elite player. They're very good. They're extremely talented, and they are very good at what they do. And their goal is to be a pro. And I will correct them on that sentence, that their goal is to be a pro. I don't think any professional athlete's goal when they were a kid was to be a pro. Their dream is to be a pro. And I always correct them on that sentence. Their goal should never be to be a pro. Their dream They dream, they go outside and they they envision and they visualize, right? What it would be like to be a pro. What it would be like to play in this awesome stadium. That's their dream. That's not their goal. Their goal should be to get better every single day. Their goal should be to, challenge themselves to get better every single day. And hopefully that dream comes true. But, you shouldn't, I don't think you should create, I think goals and dreams are much different. Goals have to be attainable, right? You have to be something that you can reach for and you can grab onto and you can't let go. And I think it's a bad stigma of saying, hey, their goal is to be a pro. No, that's their dream. And you have to understand that difference. And this kid might be 13 years old. And that's a very big goal you have to set. And that's the pressure. That's the extra pressure that you're also putting, because you're telling me that their goal is to be a pro. And no, that's, once again, I always say that's their dream. Their dream is to be a pro. Their goal should be so much different than that.
Greg Garza and the Freddie Free Kick, our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring, hanging out with us as they always do. So now that we've turned a calendar year and we're now into this next year of whatever these young athletes are chasing and the parents are hanging out with them, there's always expectations. You have the empirical evidence of the year before. I was able on the field to do this. It was X number of goals, X number of assists. I played in this number of games. When it comes to taking your empirical evidence of the year before and trying to set expectations in the year that you're in now, how do you manage these conversations with mentees? Because I imagine they're going to want to sit there and say, as to the difference between goals and dreams, once again, my goal is to win. My dream is to win, 11 gazillion championships. My dream is to score, my goal is to score 50 goals in all competitions. When it comes to setting expectations and reasonable improvement year to year, what are those conversations like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can go back to those words, right? The dream and goal. Mm-hmm. Given what I said, right, I still want kids to dream extremely big.
Yeah.
Dream big. Set high expectations, set high goals, set high standards. I play around a lot with like just wordage and wording of things. I just posted a video not too long ago, I think on Instagram of speaking about goals and challenges. And we can use those three words, right? Dreams, goals, and challenges. Dreams are one thing. Goals are another, and challenges are another. And I don't know if you and I have talked about this before, maybe last year. But the average adult, all right, and there's this scientific, right? Not scientific, but this statistic speaking thing that this guy did. And he followed hundreds of people around. And he followed people who had created their New Year's resolution, hundreds of people. Let's see, John, if you can figure out, what do you think the average adult, the average Joe Schmo, New Year's resolution was?
Oh, wow.
Men or women, doesn't matter.
Okay, so average New Year's resolution is probably to lose weight.
You got it.
Okay.
You got it. How many percentage do you think are successful in doing that?
See, but that's a trick question. You say successful. What defines success should be different to each individual, because success for one person might be sitting there saying, I need to lose 5 or 10.
Very true.
Someone else, when it comes to success, sits there and it's like, I've really got to change my body type. I've got to go completely and totally from mesomorph to endomorph or ectomorph. It's got to be, 25, 30, 50. You see the folks who are on TV, they sit there and it's like, I lost 57 pounds, right? Because it wasn't a life choice. It was mandatory for their own survival, so they could be a part of things. For sure. I would think that success is definable differently to each individual.
Oh, most definitely. Okay, we can, even though you explained it that way, but what do you think the success rate was for each of the, and everybody's goal, everybody's New Year's resolution of losing weight can be different. Right? It can be getting fit. It can be getting ripped. It can be, someone who needs to lose over 50 pounds, right? It's what do you think the percentage rate of that is?
Now, and that's another thing. How many people are being honest in this? See, you're talking to a poli-sci major here now.
Yeah.
So, as a political science major, I have to analyze each of these things. My mother was also an English major, so I have to analyze these things as you're saying it. I'll say just to put the number out there, 25%.
Yeah, it's going to be much less than that.
Okay, is it 5 to 10?
Yes, sir. It is 5 to 10.
Okay.
And with that said, this guy then was like, okay, what is happening? What is happening with these people? Right? It's like, I could tell you last year I had a kid that come and train with me. I think we spoke about it, right? It's this kid came and trained with me 5:30 in the morning every morning to my condo gym. And it was his goal that last year to get fit for high school season. And this kid lived up to his expectations. He lived up to his goal. And until high school season, we worked our butts off, man. And January 1st, I remember walking into the gym here at our condo, and it was absolutely packed.
Of course it was.
By mid-January, we were the only two people in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so this guy did this statistical training, right? He then followed the small percentage. And the small percentage was successful because these people had created challenges for themselves. They had created challenges for themselves to ultimately get to their ultimate goal. But challenge is different than a goal. A challenge is something that you face. A goal is something that you reach for. A challenge is something that you face. And that was really interesting to me because I feel like it's so easy and I've been doing this with my kids a lot. I'll ask them what their goal is for 2024, and they'll give me a list of like 6 things they want to accomplish, 6 things they're reaching for that year. And then it's like you have to help them understand how to problem solve because it's so broad. I want to become a better player. Well, I want to, have a better shot. Yeah, it's like, but you have to, then I asked them, well, what challenges are you going to create for yourself every single day to do that? Right. I'll tell you this, my goal every year as a kid was not to have a better right foot because I'm retired now for 2.5 years and my right foot still sucks. But, my goal was much different. I can guarantee you I challenge myself every single day to reach that goal. And, I think I love those 3 words is the dreams, goals, and challenges because they all differ, but they're leading you in the right direction. And that's the beauty of it. And so I always make sure kids understand the difference, and even parents understand the difference of those things. I love kids who challenge themselves. I love kids who, have to suffer through things because that's growth. When they challenge themselves, that's pure growth. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of growing and getting better at soccer, getting better at anything.
So when you say, let's say if your goal for 2024 is world domination in your field, it is taking that in its own sphere and making sure that by the end of 2024 you've dominated the world, you dominate the world, but you've taken those steps every single day to make sure that you are dominant in your field or more dominant than you were the year before.
You are exactly right. And then it's just like people who want to lose weight and get fit or get ripped or whatever. It's like you can ultimately achieve that goal by challenging yourself. But then you go into the consistency part. It's like, are you going to stay consistent with it? There's a lot of things you can grab from that. Right. And then once again, you can tell people, hey, that's a pro athlete right there. That's an elite person right there. Someone who is doing those things, challenges and goals and, dreaming big, but it's consistent. It's every single day. They're not switching off.
I'm right there with you. And there was in a past interview that you and I had, a past segment, there was one thing that I wanted to revisit, and I can't remember. There was 4 tent poles of growth that you had. It was do this, do this, do this, and do this. And I can't remember. This is where you get to put your thinking cap on, because this is for next time.
Okay.
There was someone that you really do a lot of good reading, and that you're really locked into this particular individual and their approach for improvement. And they had 4 particular tent poles, and it was rapid fire. It was like, do this, or be this, be this, be this, and be this. And I can't remember who it was. And so I know that you'll remember it at like 2:30 in the morning, and send me an email when you remember who that is, so we don't forget
All right.
that for next time.
I think it's the 4 selves. The 4 selves.
Okay, so the 4 selves. All right. So next time you're here, we'll talk about the 4 selves in addition to everything else, because you blew through the 4 selves, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And then I forgot about that last time. All right. So now we're in 2024. We're 12 days in. What's going on with Beyond Goals with you and McCabe?
Same old. Getting ready for a lot of high school talks, a lot of school talks before their season starts. A lot of team talks, and everything's been going great. Nothing to complain about. Nothing to always thinking and pushing forward.
Absolutely. And so I wrote down the 4 selves for next time. Greg, my friend, thank you for the kind words, obviously. And since the boss is a redhead, it is doubly beneficial for her, because this is National Ginger Day, apparently.
I love it.
And it is also our anniversary. So thank you for the kind words, my friend. We will catch up soon.
Happy anniversary, bud. Take care.
All right. That is Greg Garza and the Friday Free Kick. And so it's just busy. It's busy morning. Wow. The Orange and Black Soccer Cast is in early this morning. You guys are up at like before 7 o'clock. Thanks for hanging out with us. And so we have news from Poland, and apparently we also have news involving Atlanta United. So this is what happens. You talk to Atlanta United folks, and then you end up with news. Sorry, I had to kind of wipe out some graphics here. All right, so here's the updates as we have them. And once again, intrepid contributors and producers. From our buddy Tomasz Lodarczyk at Mekshiki in Poland, it appears that Bartosz Sliż has said goodbye to his colleagues from the Legia Warsaw locker room today. This weekend, and this is Google translated. This weekend, the Polish representative will undergo medical tests and sign a contract with Atlanta United. So, Bartosz Sliż is heading this way, apparently, possibly, probably, maybe. So, it appears, once again, from Tomasz Lodarczyk at Mekshiki in Poland, ready to fly to the United States, said goodbye to Legia Warsaw. And the copy from Lodarczyk, Sliż has had very successful months. Already signaled a few weeks ago that he would like to change the club. The day before yesterday, Mekshiki announced he had decided to move to Atlanta United for several days. Formalities related to Sliż's departure to the USA have been completed. Legia will earn solid money from his sale, approximately $3.5 million transferred to Legia's account. And once again, the Polish representative has said goodbye to his current teammates, soon boarding a plane to the U.S., undergoing a medical in Atlanta. If there are no contraindications, he'll sign a contract with a new club. He'll be the first Pole to play for the team from this city. So there you go. Tomasz Lodarczyk and our friends at Mekshiki letting us know that Bartosz Sliż is apparently boarding a plane and heading this way. And that is not the only news. That is not the only news. Derek Williams' deal has been finalized as well. So Derek Williams at the back to help things out. Last year we had discussed that Derek Williams' salary was around $800,000. And so it appears Derek Williams is now in. So all of these folks and all of these names and all of the stuff, deal finalized with Derek Williams. So yesterday, Stian Gregerson in. Today, Derek Williams in. Signed Williams through the 25 season with an option for 26. Originally selected the rights to Williams with the number 1 pick in stage 2 of the re-entry draft back on December 21st. Last 3 years, Galaxy, DC United, 11 seasons in England. Quote from Carlos: tough, no-nonsense defender who brings experience with more than 300 appearances from his time in England and across MLS. His understanding of the league, coupled with his physicality, gives us additional options in our backline as we navigate multiple competitions this season. Background: Williams debuted in the Premier League in 2012 with Villa before signing with Bristol City. Bristol City earned promotion to the Championship, joined Blackburn in the Championship in 2016. Born in Hamburg, he holds an American passport, will not occupy an international roster spot. 30-year-old 5'11 defender, Jarrett Williams, is in. Speaking of in, Nicolifi is in.
What's happening?
Apparently a lot of ish is happening, man.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Williams in, Gregerson in, Bartosz apparently has said goodbye to his teammates at Legia Warsaw, coming in for the medical this weekend because pitchers and catchers report tomorrow, and camp opens up on Monday. So Sleege in. It looks like Sleege is on his way to being in. So Derek Williams in, signed. Gregerson in, signed. Bartosz Sleege flying this way for pitchers and catchers report, and if he passes a medical, Sleege is in. And speaking of in, Jarrett Smith is in. It is a 3-way dance here in hour number 2. Everybody's here.
Cooking, baby.
We elected the way of pain.
So, all right, gentlemen, I will post it to the floor. Nick, I'll start with you. With this flurry of activity here just before pitchers and catchers report, we'll just go back the last day. Gregerson in, Williams in, Sleege on a flight. What say you, Nicolifi?
Hey, I have no problem. This is cooking, You look around the league, there's a lot of teams that would love to have this activity going on. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of teams that would love to be able to make these kind of moves that would, have the, we'll kind of play with the English language here and say the bigness of thought, the creativity.
Nothing wrong with the bigness of thought.
That's right. And, it's ambition. It's ambition. That's, are we going to get Lionel Messi in? No, Miami did that. Good for them. Miami's going to cook early on. They have the skill set to do it. But this is a team that, if you're just looking at the paper, looks like it's built for a longer run during the season. Miami looks like it's going to be boom bust, right?
Messi and friends, yes.
It's Messi and friends, but it's a bunch of 35-year-olds, So over the length of the season, you're going to have, a lot of skill, a lot of crazy shots, a lot of highlight moments. But over the length of the season, you're going to start seeing these guys have to sit because of the age. Atlanta looks like it's building up in the right places. Areas where they were deficient last year, especially early on, are being solved now. And that is, it's just, in my opinion, it's very, very exciting, even with the human highlight reels that's going to be going on wearing black and pink and whatever monstrosity that third kid appears to be. This is a team that looks like it's built to run for a longer period of time at a more consistent level. And I think you have to feel good about that, because all the issues that we said were happening at the beginning of last year appear to be getting solved in this transfer window.
Jarrett, I mean, you look at what's been going on here, and Boca and the front office. I know a lot of folks in the past have, we've had to look to later in the window. I think Giacomakis, the battle to bring him in from Urawa Red Diamonds and from Celtic, that took to the bitter end, where he was in warm-up clothes for AmFam Cup 2 Electric Boogaloo last year, and then he came in. but you're getting all this activity before pitchers and catchers report. And obviously this has been key to the process here in 2024. Everybody seems to be coming in just in time.
Yeah, and you got a little bit of a saga out of the Schnees thing that sounds like it sounds like we are in the final steps of getting that done.
Yep.
However,
He has said goodbye to his teammates.
yeah, and it's always so dramatic when they do that. I love it. And you still got a little saga out of it. You still got to get everybody in, get everybody settled. They'll be fine in that regard. I think you got time. Yeah, it's a good off season, and I mentioned the other day. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. You thought it was boring? Well, we're gonna make it unboring. We're gonna bring bodies in. This is exactly what they had to do. You had, if you haven't seen it, if you need a graphic of it, Tom Bogert put out a video on his YouTube that he's doing now. Kind of going into the ins and outs of Atlanta United this offseason, because the body's in, the body's out, and it's a good visualization of who left, who's coming back in. But you had spots to fill, and you've gone out and you've filled them to what you feel like is the best of your ability, which is you got another midfielder to pair with Tristan William Bach. You already have Jay Fortune ready to go.
Yep.
And looking more and more like the kind of guy who can put up minutes in the midfield. But you went ahead and you got someone else to potentially be that impact midfielder to create more depth there. You brought in Dax as the veteran. You have Aiden Torres waiting in the wings. He's not like Aiden Torres isn't going to get like 20 starts.
Yeah,
most likely. But you have him waiting in the wings. You have these people ready to go. Then you went and you got another starting center back, another big physical center back, a big athletic physical center back that you had to go get. You had to get all these moves done. You had to get them right. And now we see if they got them right. I like to think that, yeah, it's in really good shape. We just got to see how it all shakes out, man. And the Derek Williams news dropping moments ago.
Yeah. So you add Derek Williams, Nick, as another experienced individual to help out the growth of Noah Cobb, to help out with Efren Morales and his experience. And so you've got Dax McCarty helping you out in the midfield. And so, I mean, all of these ins and outs, but because of the advancing of the schedule where you're playing 78,000 games in a season, you're going to need all of these bodies.
Yeah, no, that's the issue that we're seeing with, and I keep bringing Miami in, because if you can't just say, okay, my team is built to win it all, right? Yeah. Because your enemy has a say-so in the battle, right? And that's like military 101, is that your opponent has a say in the outcome of the battle. And whenever we look at the East, you have Nashville that looks like it's going to take a step back. You have Cincinnati that looks like it's going to take a step back. The Red Bulls, we don't know what they're going to be.
They're going to be Red Bulls.
They're going to be Red Bulls, but at what level of success, we don't know. You look at, Philly. Is Philly taking a step back? What's going to happen with them? Yep. When you look at Miami, you have that front line is probably one of the most intimidating front lines, circa 2010, but it's not 2010.
Yeah.
And what we saw last year with Miami was, if you could bypass their midfield,
yes,
it was a track meet to Calendar, and Calendar was essentially having to, do like all kinds of Cirque du Soleil moves to try to keep Miami in games.
And now you don't have Kamal Miller because you traded him to Portland.
Right. You traded Kamal Miller. And I've got news for people who are like, oh, Gressel's a defender. Gressel's back. Gressel's not a defender, man. No. He's not. He's and
he's not going to play in front of DeAndre Yedlin except in spot starts.
Right. And so, there will be moments where, Gressel will be doing what Gressel does, which is where he pushes forward and provides that very accurate cross across the, across the 18. That he'll do that a few times this year, but the man's not a defender, and he's not going to provide you any sort of significant defensive presence, which means that if you go over that attacking line and that midfield line and you can get engaged with the track meet with Miami's back line, it is going to be like a lot of high scoring games, must see TV. But with Atlanta, you have something that is, on paper seems to be a more complete team. And I'm not trying to go individual for individual. I'm just saying that from front to back, it looks like you have a more complete team. That back line is getting built up and reinforced. You have, your 6 and 8, I think, are set. Your 10 is going to be a question mark until we get out of this transfer window, because what's going to happen with Almada. Does ATLUTD try to make that move? But that's going to be a question mark. I think in the attack, you have DJ Crazy Times, you have Gigi, you have Silva, and you could cook. It's hard for me to look at this team and say, okay, well, where's the glaring deficiency? I think Brad's age and whether or not Brad can be more nimble and more mobile the farther he gets away from that Achilles injury. I think that's going to be a question mark that's going to be answered.
And that's when you bring in Josh Cohen too.
Exactly. So you provided some backup there. It appears that you are filling a lot of the gaps that you had before, and it's harder and harder to find deficiencies here. And it's going to be a matter of visas, that magical, there will be billable hours. Are the visas going to get in on time? It doesn't seem like you're getting any players from any, what the U.S. government considers problematic regions of the world.
Right.
So that should be, a fairly straightforward linear process. You don't have anybody that has any sort of questionable legal activities outside of that. So again, should be straightforward. As long as the visa process gets smooth and you were able to get these guys in early, I mean, what are you really worried about at this point? Just keep everyone healthy through training camp and let them cook.
Jarrett, Miami. I know that we look at what we're anticipating from them, and it's going to be, I think, early in the season, it's going to be the Messi and friends that everybody anticipated seeing. But then you get into multiple competitions, you get into schedule compression, you get into all these different things, and then that's when I think we see the age and the lack of depth and the lack of defense catching up to Messi and friends in the win-loss column. At least I think so. But at the same time, I still think that playing the over every single match, regardless of when it is on the schedule, is going to be the play for Messi and friends this year.
Yeah, you're going to want to play the over for them, and it's just going to be how do they put up physically? How do they hold up physically? Because they're going to be asked to do a lot, especially on the back end. Like you got to make sure whoever you have running with Busquets can run, because it's going to be watching that midfield play is going to kind of be like watching the beginning of the Two Towers, where Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are like running across the countryside of New Zealand, and then like Gimli just kind of barreling behind is just going to be Busquets and whatever he's got left for legs. You better have a Legolas with him who is just going to glide.
Why do I think that's going to be Kremoski?
Hey, do the job, kid.
Get the kid.
Hey, look, though, you want minutes, you can do the job we ask you to do.
Yes.
Like, that's bare minimum, man. You want minutes, you're going to do the job we ask you to do. As Niall asked about, it's like they start to tire in the middle of the season. That's the thing, man. Like, they got to pick their spots. Like, do they go, because Tata talked about, running out of gas after Leagues Cup. Do they lean on Leagues Cup? We still don't really know what's going to happen with U.S. Open Cup, but what if there's U.S. Open Cup? Like, where do they throw their chips in? Because, like, traditionally, look, U.S. Open Cup was always the easiest way into CONCACAF Champions League, CONCACAF Champions Cup. It's the fewest amount of games and higher odds, frankly, to be playing teams that are a division below you. Like, that's the easiest route. It's a bit of a wild card. So, we'll see how they progress through things, but they're gonna have to pick their spots. They'll have games. I think they'll have games going both ways. They'll have some extremes, like kind of like Columbus did at times last year. Not to say that they'll be Columbus, but like I think they'll have extremes. They will have games where they just basically reduce their opponent to scatter particles of matter. And then they're gonna have games like the Benz last year where, oh man, look at that amazing goal that they scored. That's and again, still one of the best goals we saw all year in the Benz when Miami came here. And then proceeded to give up 4 or 5 goals. That sort of thing is going to happen to them. You just hug that moment, and you know that you're going to have to deal with it because you're going to have times. My whole thing with Miami last year was if you watch them in Leagues Cup, if you watched them after Leagues Cup, there were times where they were playing, and they were just, you're like, oh, these guys are really good, and then you watch them, like, oh, they're playing teams that don't know how to finish. Like, go back and watch some of those games. There were games where you're like, I've never seen a team forget how to finish to the degree that teams were forgetting how to finish goals against Miami, and instead of 4-4 games, you were getting 4-1 games where somebody left 3 easy goals on the doorstep. It just didn't go in.
Yep.
Yeah. What if someone other than Messi? What if someone other than Luis Suarez, whose knees are basically made of paper mache? What if someone else struggles to put the ball in the back of the net for Miami?
Well, let's look at something else here and that's the starstruck factor. That's not going to happen, I think, this year. You have a lot of players who, great. We had our OMG experience last year playing Miami. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm on the field at the same time as one of the greatest, if not the greatest to ever do it. This is something I can tell my kids about. Oh my God. And now it's just okay, it's Miami. They're on the schedule. We got to, we know what they're going to do now. And, when you don't have that, the mythology level, surrounding there. You don't have the absolute circus atmosphere that you had, year one with Messi. I think it's going to help settle a lot of teams down. And what happens when, they go against some of the more physical teams? We hate Philly, right? We hate Philly, but Philly plays like they're doing a knife fight in a phone booth. And they were one of the few teams that seemingly had zero reverence for any of the players that were on the field at the time and just went to work on them. And if you have that happening again this year with more teams, like Atlanta ends up going in and, decide, all right, fine, we'll go shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow with any of these guys. We don't care. It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. Ricky says, I wonder if any of the other teams will move their game versus Miami to a larger stadium like Sporting Kansas City is. One, I'm holding up 3 fingers right now for Sporting Kansas City, and I'll let everyone out there select which one is being directed in their direction. But that you are going to have some teams that are going to be facing Miami that will still have that circus atmosphere, but in the East, that's not going to be the case. So, what happens with that? So I think it's going to be a far more competitive situation, especially around the May-June period.
Yeah.
Than it is, they're going to come out like Toronto did early, last year, where they're going to put a few strings together and it's going to be absolutely nuts how good they're going to look. But that doesn't mean they're going to look that good come June, July, and August. So, one or two times against like a Philly or Red Bulls or an Orlando or Miami, who's not going to be afraid, or an Orlando or Atlanta rather, who's not afraid to go and play physical against Miami. They're going to look like a very, very different team, and it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out.
And to your point, Nick, I mean, we talk about this pretty frequently, but there's this thing about you show people respect, but you don't show them too much respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you know you're going against the GOAT. You know you're going against Tata. You know you're going against the Super Friends. Well, the Super Friends of yesteryear.
Yes.
But you don't show them you cannot show them so much respect that they walk all over you. You can't give them acres of space. Like, oh, well, that guy's, he's one of the greatest of all time. He's, for Messi, he's probably the greatest of all time. Like, we don't want to get embarrassed. Don't want to do anything crazy. You can't show them that much respect. You're going to show them respect, but you cannot let them walk all over you. Somebody this year is going to get walked all over because they're going to show too much respect, even if it's subconscious. Even if you got dudes on your squad who grew up watching him and they're not thinking about it that way, but they kind of go, oh man, I just realized I'm losing my mind and I'm like not going as hard as I should because I'm kind of in awe of this, and that's okay. Like, we're all allowed to like meet our heroes, that kind of thing. But you cannot show them that much respect, man.
You're just like, yeah, okay, great. The moment's passed, and now it's time to play. You can't be intimidated.
Man, we're playing Messi. Great. He's trying to put a hat trick on you. You can be in love with the idea of Messi, but he's trying to put a hat trick on you. It would be in your best interest to not let him do that.
Yes, it would be a good idea if you did not let that occur. Nick, to your point about Kansas City, we kind of got into it yesterday. We didn't get into it fully in depth. Gavin Wilkinson, it was toward the end of the show. Gavin Wilkinson was hired by Sporting Kansas City to be now in the front office. Obviously, he is still responsible to Peter Vermes. Vermes still manager, listed as chief soccer officer. Gavin Wilkinson is the new sporting director. And it was a press conference yesterday where Gavin Wilkinson got asked a lot of questions. We'll get into that in just a sec. The Cauldron and South Stand Supporters Club went public on the 280-character app, and they are looking forward to the Q&A sessions that they're going to be having with Gavin Wilkinson coming up in short order. But Sam McDowell at the Kansas City Star had a column yesterday, and here's what Sam said. Daniel Sperry was there. McDowell was there for the Kansas City Star. So 75 seconds in, you get an apology from Gavin Wilkinson, former Portland GM. And this is the wording from McDowell. Requests that you get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Requests that you do what Wilkinson once did, but now notably serves as the basis for his regret. Forget about the past and move on. These are the words from McDowell. Wilkinson was fired in late 2022 from the job he held in Portland, overseeing the rosters for both the Timbers and the Thorns, when an investigation commissioned by U.S. Soccer concluded he vouched for a coach he'd recently fired due to a player's allegation of sexual misconduct. Thursday, speaking publicly for the first time in 15 months since his dismissal from Portland, he denied Wilkinson vouching for Paul Riley when he was up for another coaching job in the NWSL. He not once but twice refuted references in the Sally Yates report as hearsay. Also in the article from McDowell, Wilkinson did acknowledge a failure to dissuade the Western New York Flash team from hiring Riley after Monashim accused him of sexual harassment in September 2015. Quote, I should have done more in my previous role to protect and empower female athletes and not hide behind legal advice. Over 25 minutes, virtually every question thrown toward Wilkinson, who sat along Vermes, revolved around the past, not the intrigue of a new future. denied the most serious accusations against him in the investigation conducted by Sally Yates. Those that said he told Western New York he would hire Riley in a heartbeat, that Riley was put in a bad position by the player, quote, that did not happen, end quote. Then after Wilkinson's first action was to fire Riley, each of his subsequent actions, once again, this is McDowell, enabled Riley to land on his feet and remain upright. Quote, this incident is obviously a concern, Wilkinson said. There was an error in judgment, and I should have done more. Wilkinson had multiple opportunities to tell anyone, what he knew about Paul Riley, made a decision every single day to remain quiet, made a decision to keep the accusation out of his conversations with another team, made a decision not to call them a day later and say, hey, you know what? You might want to know about this. The error is not a heat-of-the-moment headbutt on the field. It's a single mission that necessitated Wilkinson to make the same error time and again. That's an important distinction. By his own account, he, for 6 years, knew of Monishim's allegation against Paul Riley. All the while, Riley continued to hold one of just 10 head coaching positions in the premier women's soccer league in the country. And for 6 years, Wilkinson sat back and said nothing to change that. On Thursday, he said he learned of the full scope of Riley's behavior through a journalistic investigation by The Athletic. He called it shocking, but he's to blame for his own surprise. Once again, McDowell. He not only had an opportunity to learn the full scope of Riley's actions, but an email invitation begging him to do so. Quote, I should have done a deeper dive. I should have found out more. I should have asked more questions. I tried to reach out to a player that I do owe an apology to at that stage. I did not do enough. And in reflection, it's easy to see that. Wilkinson did inform Riley he was firing him in September 2015 because, quote, while our investigation did not reveal any unlawful conduct by anyone, we did confirm that on occasion you exercised poor judgment in your interaction with one or more players, according to the Yates report. But then Wilkinson told the media publicly Riley's dismissal was results-based. Why conceal the truth? I asked him that Thursday, quote, under legal advice. And I think it was noted that there was fear of litigation at the time. And so McDowell pretty much vilifies Wilkinson and just lets him have it with any and all possible way to let that go down. So it was a testy press conference, and there was one particular element where, and I got to find it, involving the conversations with McDowell, and I've got to find it, and I'm going to look for it somewhere, but this was a press conference that I imagine that Sporting Kansas City did not anticipate would go in the direction it did for the length of time that it did.
Oh, it did. Oh no, come on. Let's be real about this. Sporting Kansas City knew exactly what they were getting into. What happened here is a transaction. It was a transaction between Wilkinson, Sporting Kansas City, and essentially logic and reason. Mm-hmm. And that is, they sat down, Sporting Kansas City, and said, okay, we need to change direction here. We need to get a winner on the field. We need a more consistent winning product that will keep the fan base happy. And they did their head hunting search. They checked their metrics, everything, blah, blah, blah. And they circled Wilkinson's name, and they said, okay, let's do the background check. So they did the background check. And of course, I mean, it's not really a background check when you just have to turn around and look at the pile of trash that follows this man. And they said, okay, if we hire him, how bad will the blowback be? Mm-hmm. And someone, I'm sure, said it's going to be bad. Okay, we'll wait them out. Let's get a press conference. We'll go as long as we need to go. Let everyone get their angst out. Let everyone get their venom out. And when the wins happen, it will die down, right? The heat will dissipate as the wins come in, because that's how good this guy is, right? And that's the transaction. We will pay through heat, and we will pay through angst for a short window of time in exchange for wins. And the fan base will become compliant when the wins happen. We will provide spectacle, and spectacle will cover the error, the perceived error of our ways. That's what they're counting on. They're counting on not just Sporting Kansas City fan base, but the MLS fan base as a whole to sort of die off in anger. So it's on us as people in media and the fan base to make the decision collectively whether or not we prove them right by allowing this to die off. That's on us. We are the ultimate arbiters of how this is going to play out. Sporting Kansas City made a not a stupid decision, doesn't even really qualify in my mind. It is catastrophic brand damage that they've done. Catastrophic brand damage. I don't care what Wilkinson says. I don't. Everything that it's not a complete investigation. I'm sorry. Sally Yates went through and provided an extraordinarily comprehensive report.
Basically what Wilkinson intimated in his press conference was that there were parts of the Sally Yates report that were incorrect.
Yes, that's what he said.
And so, okay, what parts? And I found the section I was looking for. So when McDowell asked Wilkinson about his recommendation of Paul Riley for another job, he denied that happened, but he said he regrets not doing more to prevent the hire. Said it's also not true. He said a player put Riley in a bad position. But in the Yates report itself, it says Wilkinson recalled. So Wilkinson did an interview for the Yates report. And in the Yates report, it says Wilkinson recalled speaking on the phone with Lines and agreed that his message to Lines was, other than the reason why Wilkinson fired him, Riley was a good coach and Wilkinson would hire him again.
Yep. Well, look.
So then what's wrong? So where in the Yates report, Jarrett, where are we wrong here?
I have a really stupid question, and it's not really an honorable question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah.
What precluded you from releasing this on Wednesday afternoon? Well, Nick, I'm asking from strictly take off our criticism hat for a second.
Yeah, sure.
Put on our PR hats for a second.
Yeah.
We're hiring this guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to go over well.
Yeah.
Hey guys, did y'all see the news? Nick Saban just resigned.
Yes.
Well, what a better time to release that we're hiring somebody.
Yeah.
It is not a good hire in terms of optics or reputation or really a lot of things. Why didn't you release it on Wednesday when the free world was collapsing under the news?
Why not
of like
part
Pete
of the news,
Carroll and Nick Saban? Like the sporting world was very distracted. Yeah, sure, you're going to get soccer people still seeing it. They're going to be critical. I don't know, man. Like I said, you put on your PR hat for a minute and ask, why didn't you do that? Because, man, or could have just not hired him in the first place.
But that's what happens is they expect is that they, with the way the news cycle works nowadays, they expect it to be in the news cycle for an hour, 2 tops, and then it exists on social media before it just gets washed away by the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's guys, that's how they think you're programmed, right? They being the people who make these decisions, which is, they're going to be mad for a little while. They'll yell and scream on social media. It's not real anyway. And they'll get over it. And when we beat FC Dallas, when we beat LAFC, when we put a team together that has us beating, Vancouver and Seattle, they're going to shut up and they're going to buy tickets.
Wins cure everything.
That's it. Guys, that's what they do. That's how these conversations happen. There's no kind of, it is this conversation that takes place every day whenever anyone does like any sort of kind of crazy thing of, we're going to we're going to have to lay off 24% of our workforce. Okay, well, when are we going to announce this? Friday at 6:30 p.m.
News dump.
Yep. So we'll do our news dump then. When the market opens on Monday, we're going to take a slight ding on value. We're not estimating any more than 3% value loss, which will be recovered by Wednesday, and we'll be A-okay, right? Because then we're going to release our new numbers the following week, and then we'll bounce back to about 9 or 10%. So that's how it works. Or, hey, we're signing this scumbag, and we're going to dump it in the middle of one of the hottest, to Jarrett's point, that one of the hottest news cycles in recent memory in the world of sports. You had Nick Saban retiring, you had Bill Belichick in the press conference with Kraft leaving the Patriots, and we're just going to throw this in there and it's going to get buried because we're flyover country anyway. Who cares? And for a leadership committee that includes Patrick Mahomes, don't forget he's a part of that committee, right? You have a major issue that he's going to be in the news, right? His wife, Brittany, is going to be in the news, and they're all part of this thing. And so it's on you guys, the fan bases out there, to keep the heat on. If you don't want more organizations, because everybody looks and says, well, Kansas City got away with it. Well, I mean, we should be able to get away with this, right? I mean, the person we're hiring is not as bad as that guy. If you don't want teams making these kind of decisions, you have to make it where it is so toxic and so stupid that the team goes, guys, this is just not working. It's just not working. We've lost 14% of our season ticket renewals. We're estimated to lose another 30% coming up. We're getting openly boycotted by supporter groups. They're not showing up in stadiums. They're spending half the game silent. This is a terrible look for us. It's not working, guys. It's not working. That's what you want them to say if you want your team running in a certain way. If you want them running in a more morally correct view. If you don't care and all you care, just win, baby. Give them the Al Davis, just win, baby. Then that's fine. Show up, buy your tickets, buy your shirts, do whatever, but don't sit there and talk about how bad this is if you're going to keep funding that business. So it's on you to decide how you are going to be handling things.
All right. We got about another 20 minutes, and then we've got topics on the table to get to before the end of the week. We've got Gio Reyna possibly on the move. We have Newcastle announcing a $73 million loss. Darren Eels mentioned that yesterday, that they have a $73 million loss, and they're only allowed to lose $32 million more in the next 2 seasons.
How much was Sandro Tonali's transfer again?
It was a fair poke, sir. I'll have to dig that one up, but they're only allowed to lose another $32 million. We mentioned Fidel Barajas briefly yesterday at RSL. Fidel Barajas going from Charleston Battery to RSL for a steal at $250,000. That is a steal. Charleston getting paid, but still, Barajas with all of his upside at 17 years old going to RSL for $250,000 plus a percentage of the pass. But that was a smart play by the front office there in Charleston. But yes, Charleston gets the sell on, still $250,000. But Eddie Howe said that they're at their press conference. We also have Bruce Arena to talk about too. We finally have an answer on Bruce Arena. Eddie Howe said Newcastle would already have looked to enter the transfer market if they weren't held back by FFP, hit by a succession of long-term injuries. Joelinton in the quad, he's out for 6 weeks. Howe said the club would have to look to utilize the transfer market to fill the gaps left by those absentees, but speaking the day after the club announced pre-tax losses of £73 million for 22-23, he admitted that they've been hamstrung by their financial commitments. In an ideal world, given the freedom to act, we would have brought players in already, but we're not in that situation. As Darren alluded to on Thursday, FFP is a problem for us, and we're having to navigate around that. That's the position we're in. When does it become a problem? It's already one, but we're trying to manage it. Rolling 3-year period, $105 million is what you're allowed to lose. So, like I said, 70% of that's already in the barn for Newcastle. They can only lose another $30 million in the next 2 seasons to make sure that they're not in violation of FFP. Yep.
This is a move to get rid of Tonali's contract.
$70 million was Tonali, by the way.
It's 55 million pounds sterling.
70 million euro. So
Yeah.
55 million pounds for Tonali.
They're trying to get out from under Tonali's contract. They're going to try to find any way to get out, to justify getting rid of him. And it's the easiest way to justify it from a public, hey, look, this is how from a PR standpoint, we have a guy who got busted gambling. We spent 55 million on him, pound sterling. We've got to get rid of him. This is just dollars and cents business. We tried it. It didn't work. The kid's, a lost cause. We got to cut bait on this. I don't know how they're necessarily going to do it, but to me, this just seems like a little PR move that, you're going to have to justify moving some heavy names and without having your fan base go nuclear. And I'm thinking that that's probably going to be the way that they're going to do it. The lawyers will be involved. It's going to be pretty nasty, but I want a larger conversation, guys, on this is like we talk about all the time. And we seem to be, from what I hear, the only freaking show that talks about this is how it is unsustainable. These massive transfers, even for a club that's owned by Saudi Arabia, right? These big oil money, it is not sustainable. You can't just build these clubs overnight from massive transfer fees. Even the 20 to 40 million ones, they compile. They over time, they sit there and they add up. And now you have a team that is very competitive, but they're running into financial problems, right?
Yep.
Not like the old days. It's not like the old days. And we can't keep pretending it is.
Keep an eye on that as well. Jarrett, we have an answer on Bruce Arena.
Do we?
Bruce Arena has not yet been reinstated by Major League Soccer, according to The Athletic. Likely to be reinstated, as he's done, according to Tommy Scoops and Pablo Maurer, likely to be reinstated as he's done an extensive amount of league-mandated restorative training, whatever that is. The process is ongoing. And so now all MLS head coaching vacancies from 2023 are filled except for Minnesota United, who announced Cameron Knowles will start the preseason as their interim to the interim. So we have an answer on Bruce Arena. He ain't done.
It's just where's Shooter when we need him, man? Shooter to come in here and just break this down to TVMA. It's been like this weird lack of transparency with it. Hey, something happened. What happened? We can't tell you.
Something.
It was something.
Something
But
happened.
what was it? It was something. What was it? Like you're beating your head against the wall. Good luck, everybody. Yeah, man, it's just weird that it just keeps happening. We just kind of keep getting the suspicious. Hey, something happened, guys. We can't talk about it. Don't worry about it. Something went wrong. And apparently at this point, I've given up. They're not going to tell us what it was. I'm just kind of at peace with the fact that they're just gonna drip this out. Like if you've ever had an animal like a guinea pig or a hamster, and you have those drip bottles, it's just that. We are the hamster in this analogy.
Yeah, we're the hamster going over to the water bottle here.
Bruce taking over Alabama football. I don't know, man. Like, hey, on that front,
Jalen DeBoer.
Shout out to the people at Oregon for putting together one of the best videos and one of the best processes you've ever seen for turning down a job.
Yes.
That was brilliant from Dan Lanning and company. Sark's saying as well, but Kalen DeFore is not doing his radio show today.
Mm-hmm. Keep an eye on flights going from Seattle to Tuscaloosa. Nick, Gio Reyna changed his agent.
Mm-hmm.
And now it appears Sevilla, according to our friends at La Liga Extra, and once again, check your sources and check your numbers this time of year, from Fernando Serrano, who has he's got 11,000 followers, and he's works over at Fichajes. Sevilla interested in signing Gio Reyna on loan from Borussia Dortmund. Sevilla also looking to open up space by working on the sales of Oliver Torres and Eric Lamela. When you change your agent, you know that, and you go to Jorge Mendes as your agent. I mean, that to me, Real Sociedad interested in getting Reyna on loan, maintain contacts with the Borussia Dortmund and Gio, but you know you're going from Wasserman to Jorge Mendes. Reyna wants more playing time, and an agent change to Hestafute is supposed to help with a potential transfer in the summer. Is Jorge Mendes, when you leave Wasserman and you go to Mendes and you want more playing time, is that supposed to help you?
No. There are teams that won't do business with Mendes. Just like there were teams that wouldn't do business with Mino Raiola. May he rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want any part of that circus. None of it. I don't want any part of the Gio Reyna circus. None. Zero. I don't care if he's the future of your guys' team. I don't care. I don't want it. I don't want him at Milan. I don't want him if somebody wants to sign him and have mommy and daddy Apache helicopters over him 24/7, go for it. I don't hate Gio. I don't hate Gio. I hate the circus that comes with Gio.
There you go.
And I think he's a great player. That's what's so frustrating about it.
Important distinction. That
Right.
is an important distinction, that you don't hate Gio Reyna.
No.
The circus that comes with it is an entirely different thing, and I wish we had the circus music to go with.
Yeah. Yes. When you have, I'm sorry, but when you see the images that come out of the German press where Claudio Reyna is walking into the Borussia Dortmund building. I'm sorry, what? Why? He has an agent. Let his agent do the work. Mommy and daddy don't need to be a part of this process. Mommy and daddy didn't need to be part of the process for the U.S. men's national team mess either. He is a huge talent, but there are better players out there on the global market than him. I don't see why. It's a huge story in America. It's a huge story for America, for Americans and supporters of the U.S. men's national team. Gio, I do blame Gio in a way, Del, because I have to have Gio say, Mom, Dad, back up. Let me do me. Let me win or lose as me. I don't need you to be a part of this. Mom, Dad, sit back. Be frustrated, be mad, be my biggest fans, but do it from a distance. Don't be coming up into my club's offices, because even if he just walked in, even if Claudio Reyna walked in and had a cup of coffee and said, wow, they have really good coffee here at the Borussia Dortmund office. From a public perspective, from a fan base perspective, it looks like here come the Apache helicopter parents coming in for more drama. No, it's not. It's not needed. It's not needed. Fail on your own. Be successful on your own. And to sit here and change agents, now I want more playing time. Earn it. Earn the playing time. I want more playing time. You were at Borussia Dortmund, a club that is known for giving talented kids, regardless of where they come from, an opportunity to thrive. And you couldn't be in the starting lineup on a regular basis, which means what? You weren't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Or you pissed off the manager. One of the two.
Or both.
Or both. I don't want Gio to fail, right? But I don't have the emotional skin in the game like a lot of men's national team fans do on he has to succeed, right? I'm looking at it from a very neutral perspective. I don't care if Sandro Tonali's parents right? Pre-gambling. We're walking into every facility demanding playing time. I would be like, yo, get this bum out of here. You know, there's too much circus that surrounds a kid who is unbelievably talented, displays that talent in a streakish fashion, gets injured, and has this kind of drama surrounding them. It's not worth it. It's not. There are too many talented kids out there from Spain, from France, from the Netherlands, from the Czech Republic, wherever, to come in and supplant him. And now that's happening. So you go to Jorge Mendes and say, "Get me more playing time." You can get more playing time. Go to Feyenoord. You'll get all the playing time you want at Feyenoord.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you don't want that? Okay, all right. Go to Sassuolo. You could go to Sassuolo and get all the playing time you want at Sassuolo. You don't want to do that, do you? No, because you want a premier stop. You want playing time at a premier club. Earn it. Mommy and daddy don't have to be involved in this process. You got to. It's the most frustrating thing when you have a kid who has unbelievable amounts of talent and you keep hearing the same things nonstop. It's infuriating. Jarrett, please chime in. I think Dell's ready to come. Dell's ready to come after me. He's loading up the car in Charleston right now. He's like, "This is shame."
I'm coming for you, Leafy. Oh my God!
Love you, Dell.
I'm just picturing out now Dell like doing the guy in The Jerk who comes after Steve Martin when he just picks him out of the phone book.
That's right.
So my thing remains with Gio that like Gio's biggest enemy is can. He hates these cans. But my thing with Gio remains that his biggest enemy has been his parents, whether they mean to be or not. Like they've just complicated things. And to play devil's advocate on you a little bit, Nick, not because I disagree with you, but to play devil's advocate on it, I've wondered a bit if one of the reasons he's trying to stay, or he wants to stay, is to prove a point, to prove that he can stick there, for better or worse. He wants to prove that he can thrive there. He doesn't need to go anywhere else. He can just be great there.
Yeah.
And I don't blame a guy for doing that, but yeah, man, this is one of those situations where, like, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Like, man, you parents just need to take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it makes the conversations that we have with Greg and Parky even more valuable on a Friday.
Yeah, man, it's just so extensively unnecessary. You know what I mean? Like, that's the best way I can think to put it.
Yeah.
Is it's just so extensively unnecessary that you have them, showing up and because after everything that's happened, what comes with that. And I think it's blockheaded from Claudio at times, because you have to know that your presence is going to create narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And as a parent, one of your jobs should be to protect your kid when you can, with things you can control. You can't helicopter parent your kid forever. They're going to resent you eventually over it, and I get that. But in situations like this, where you can help them and you can protect them a bit, in this one, man, do it from a distance. Build that, build, or if you have to rebuild the relationship. I don't know what his parents and his relationship is like after everything that's happened. I'm not going to assume one way or the other, but just maintain that relationship, but maintain it from a bit of a distance and give him space, and don't be popping up everywhere he is, because the impact that's going to have on him if you're popping up and stuff. Everyone's going to just assume you're bringing the circus to town. He's going to get wrapped up in it. If he's ever going to kind of get over all of this stuff, he's going to have to do it on his own through the team without you making the circus roll into town, man. Just do right by your kid in this instance by just giving him space, man. Let him learn. If he makes mistakes on his own, he makes mistakes on his own, and maybe he grows from it. Because God knows we have seen an infinite number of young athletes make really dumb mistakes and then grow from them and be fine.
Hey, Jarrett. Who
Hey, John.
said? I have a quote, and I will let the both of you try and guess who said this particular quote. And I will narrow it down to say that it happened at MLS Major Media Day. Here's a quote.
I know exactly what you're about to say. Go on.
Quote, yeah, obviously not the best situation. We start on Saturday with the tests. So I haven't been around and haven't seen any of the players since the end of the last season. Hopefully we get everything sorted out fast and we can start on Monday with training and get everything going. We have a good core in our team, I would say, and probably need to sign some players. And yeah, we need to start the work and hopefully we'll be ready when the season starts. Jarrett, who said that at Media Day?
Okay, I was wrong. I don't know who said that.
Nick, who said that at Media Day?
I'm going to guess it is. I'm going to guess that it's somebody out of Portland.
Teemu Pukki at Minnesota United.
Oh, Jesus.
He was asked about the current situation, and that's what Teemu Pukki said.
Well, because, again, Minnesota does not have a head coach. They had an interim coach from last year. The interim coach left. The interim coach took a different job. So they're on their interim coach, who's their second team coach.
That is true.
Their GM/technical director is still waiting for his visa. Nick, help me out here. I'm words are failing me, and
this. Okay, yeah. Here's the thing about Minnesota. Minnesota is a trash can franchise. And this is earned. There's some that it's you just say they're a trash can franchise because they're your rival, and it's just fun to say that. Minnesota is different because they've earned that title. They have earned the right to be called a joke franchise. They have earned the right to be a clown show. They have earned the right to be accurately called an abysmal failure of an organization. From minute one, they came in with low expectations and with low understanding of the situation around them. They came in with what's clearly extraordinarily poor research on the level of competition they would be facing and the roster necessary to compete in that environment.
The Scandinavian variant out of the blocks was an amazing thought.
And they instead have gone and time again have proven themselves to be woefully inadequate at every level of the decision-making process, woefully inadequate from spending perspective, woefully inadequate from a facility standpoint, woefully inadequate from an academy which they tried to kill but was forced into reinstating, woefully inadequate on a PR perspective. It is absolutely disgraceful that a team that allegedly, quote unquote, has money like Minnesota does, can't find a functional, licensed manager to take over that team, that they cannot find enough players to fill out an MLS roster in this country. It is, they've earned it.
Would you like to know what I think they've done? And this is going to hurt me as much as it's going to hurt anybody else to say.
Oh, wow.
But do you know what they have done? They have done an Atlanta Falcons. They went, hear me out on this.
Okay.
Remember 2018 remember 2019 and 2020? 2019, Minnesota goes to U.S. Open Cup final in Atlanta. Again, comes a shocking miss away from sending that to extra time while Atlanta's down a man. They lose that. they choke in the Western Conference Final in 2020. You had built something short term that was working, that was stable, that worked short term. And we know MLS is structured for short term anyway. You had gotten to a Cup final and then a Western Conference Final, and you spit the bit both times. And then you couldn't sustain it. You did a Falcons. You built something really cool and really fancy. It's low fruit, bud. Ricky, it's low fruit. But you and I both eat this fruit literally every day, every Sunday in the fall. We do this together.
Yeah, you do.
We suffer together. But they did a Falcons, man. Like, they built something that was really cool, was really fun. Like, man, 2020 Minnesota was fun. To a point where we went into 2021 thinking they were going to be a Cup contender. I just didn't hold up. And yeah, now it was unsustainable. So there you go.
Yes.
And now you're in a situation where you're having to put this all back together.
But they're not putting it together. That's what's hilarious. It looks like there's no one who's trying to put it together. It's just like, yeah, we exist. They're not going to contract the franchise. So yeah, sure. We'll figure it out, I guess.
Ricky, we don't have to compare every failure to the Falcons, but in this instance, I mean, it's a team that, that struggled, that built, that like everything came together so beautifully. And then they just didn't take advantage of it, and now they're just kind of wandering in the desert. I mean, at least the Falcons appear to like have a plan going forward. So there's that. Like they have like young talent and skill players. Maybe the next coach will actually use them instead of having them block so that Michael Pruitt can catch tight end passes from Jonnu Smith.
There you go.
I must push back against your analogy, Jarrett, of wandering through the desert, because that invokes that they had some level of bravery, some level of courage, some level of adventurism, that thirst for death-defying activity. And instead they are the freaking kumquat who's peeking behind the shades at their house, looking at an outside world in a terrifying way. That this whole big scary world's out there, and I'm just going to peek through the blinds because, oh my God, if someone sees me, it might hurt me. That's who Minnesota is. Minnesota's a shut-in who refuses to go outside because they lack any sense of physical courage, the courage to go to the mailbox. They need to be called in for some serious help. By the league, by someone who says, hey, if you can't spend your money, I mean, spend your money in a stupid way. Al Davis spent money in a real stupid way, and the Raiders were at least fun to watch from a failure perspective because they tried to be adventurous. It's better than to sit there and just wait to die. One of my favorite lines from the movie Alien 3 is when one of the characters gets up and he says, we're all going to die. It's just a matter of when and how. You can either die on your feet or you can die on your knees. And I'm sorry, I ain't one for begging, right? And that's what it looks like Minnesota's doing. They're on their knees begging. Just put me out of my misery, please. I need Vito Corleone to come up and be like, he's like, what do I do, Godfather? What do I do? You act like a man, like get up, man. Show some courage. Be brave. Good Lord, what's it going to cost you? You're cowards. You are cowards and cool kids. That's it. You're cowards and cool kids.
One more piece of news before we go. Red Bulls have transferred Luquinhas for 7 figures to Fortaleza. That is now official out of Red Bulls. So last thoughts on the week, Jarrett, before we go. Nick, you'll have the same chance, but Jarrett, last thoughts before we go.
Okay, everybody's going to be at camp coming up soon. We get our questions answered about that on that front of things. So just be patient with it. Let's see. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. I know we already got we already have Edwin Moscato banged up.
Yep.
But enjoy the upcoming preseason, and also please don't read too far into preseason. Don't read into preseason too much. It's a time to get guys on the field, to get guys comfortable. see what everyone can give you. It doesn't have to define your entire season. So please don't let it.
Pitchers
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
There you go. Pitchers and catchers report tomorrow. First day of camp is on Monday. Nick, last thoughts for the week.
If you are going to be, if you're going to be on, the side of a team, be on the side of a team that at least attempts to do things halfway right. If you're going to spend money on a club, make sure you spend one that has at least some level of courage about themselves and not operating like a, look, I was even going to make a crack, but I keep thinking about it. There are more USL League Two teams that have more courage, infinitely more courage than Minnesota has right now. So, just understand there are options. If you are a Minnesota fan, there are options to where to put your money to where it counts. That's all I'm saying.
Put your money where it counts. That's what we're saying. Strikers and keepers could definitely report at a separate time. LOL. Yes, absolutely, Ricky.
Prince deserved better. The home state of Prince deserves better than this buffoonery that Minnesota United's putting out there. Don't ever play Purple Rain. Don't ever play Let's Go Crazy. Don't play any of the Purple One's music at your stadium because you don't rate it.
Wow. Well, on that note, that's been a week. Today we had a lot of news with Atlanta United, and yesterday, Stian Gregerson in. Derek Williams, official. Bartosz Slisz apparently has said goodbye to his teammates at Legia Warsaw. Physical makes sense tomorrow, and with camp starting on Monday. So that could be part of Monday as Monday's unveiled for camp for you and your favorite clubs. It's been another fun week. When we get back on Monday, I'll be back at Office HD because today is both National Ginger Day for the boss and 11th anniversary. So it is going to be the rest of the weekend here at the beach, and we'll be back at Office HD, weather permitting, on Monday. So we'll see if we haven't all frozen. Thank you, Abby. Planning on having a great anniversary and a great anniversary weekend. Thanks to all of you for the fantastic wishes and such. But we'll be back at it again on Monday. Thanks to Greg Garza. Thanks to Nick. Thanks to Jarrett. And thanks to all of you guys for hanging out with us as you always do every single day, Monday through Friday. And I know we need an afternoon show. I know we do because of all the news that breaks that we have to talk about the following morning. But for everybody here at SDH, that's the end of another week. So play it safe, everybody. Mucha plati all. And since it's the end of the show, that means that we get to do this. We'll be back at it again on Monday morning at 9:05. That's a promise.